Story 1. I know a woman who has been with a man for almost 20 years, engaged for close to 10, and will never get married. She had a difficult upbringing and said that she would feel trapped in a marriage, where just being perpetually engaged feels safer. Story 2. There is no point. I feel like the number of men who are married because she wanted to is much higher than it should be. Story 3. My girlfriend and I have been together for 8 years. We are the love of each other's lives. We are absolutely committed to one another and would take the challenge of our relationship with anyone else. We just don't believe in getting married. Both of us are divorced. The institution doesn't make any sense. Eventually, we will probably get a power of attorney for important decisions. But marriage makes no sense to us. I'll go a step further and say that I think marriage weakens relationships. Once you start taking your partner for granted, which is kind of what the promise of marriage is, then you stop actively choosing each other every day. Story 4. I look around and see everyone's relationships getting worse after marriage. The advantages are slim to none, just extra baggage. I don't need it. I have no use for it. 11 years in a happy, unmarried relationship. Story 5. We are happy. It would not benefit either of us. It is simpler. No children, so separation would be much easier. Story 6. Maybe if there was some land involved, maybe a dowry, a lucrative business deal, or some sort of alliance to help defend against the Mongol hordes. Without that, it is just a waste of time. Story 7. Because I do not want to marry her entire family, which would be included, plus the risk of her running away taking part of my finances. Also, no marriage without a prenuptial agreement for me, which would be seen as a possible vote of no trust or confidence. Story 8. Too much liability. The only purpose of marriage is family, and I am too old to start another one. If something happens to my wife, I have had my family, and I am done. I will never get married again. Story 9. See decision-making as a scale. Nowadays, what are the pros and cons of marriage? Most divorces are initiated by women, and you can lose a lot financially in the process. You can have children without being married. There is no longer prejudice against children born out of wedlock. Women, especially in Western countries, do not wait until marriage to have sex. You can have sex without being in a relationship. Women accept living together and doing exactly the same things as a married couple. Parents on both sides no longer push you to marry. They can have grandchildren even without marriage. Marriage does not guarantee fidelity. These factors, among others, used to be strong incentives for men to marry and weighed heavily on the scale, pushing them to marry. Not anymore. So the question should be, why do men still get married? Marriage, the wedding, not simply living together, is more a woman's dream than a man's. I am not saying there is no point, but objectively, there are not many decisive pros left for men to marry. Story 10. There is not really anything marriage provides that you cannot have outside of marriage. In the highly likely event that the relationship ends, it is much easier to do so when not married. No lawyers, no paperwork, easy. Story 11. For my part, I've been married. I did everything right. I wasn't perfect, of course, but by even her and her friends' words after the fact, I was a great husband, and she still ended it because a man she wanted attention from showed her interest. It took 2 years to fully disentangle the marriage, and I still have to see her all the time because we have a child together. For myself, I am too old now to risk going through that ever again. I think my current relationship is good, but I thought my marriage was good for a full decade before she randomly decided, with the encouragement of her therapist, that she deserved to try someone else. On the other side of that, there are important benefits she currently has for herself and her children that would be lost if we remarried, and my private insurance and wages are not nearly enough to cover the gap. I don't even make bad money. That's just how expensive healthcare and private insurance are in this country. Story 12. Start from the other side. Why get married? Will getting married change the relationship? So, do you want that? If not, then why? People can love each other indefinitely without involving the government. Breaking up with a lover can be anywhere from a relief to devastating. But getting divorced is always a nightmare. To what problem is marriage the solution? Of all the beautiful, terrible, and strange things you want to do to each other, paperwork might not be one of them. Marriage is grand. Divorce is 100 grand. The historical origins of marriage involve the exchange of property, typically the woman, to establish family alliances and had nothing to do with love. Meanings can change, but what purpose does it serve now? If the premise of marriage is to state that the relationship will not end until death, is that a sensible thing to want? If you want your partner to leave you if they do not want to be with you anymore, then should "until death" really be the sentence? If the person I am with did not love me anymore and did not want to be with me, I would much rather they leave than stick around making us both miserable for the rest of our lives. Likewise, should I really promise until death when the fact is, if I do not want to be with you anymore, it is in both our best interests for me to leave? Imagine a couple falling out of love who do not want to be together anymore. It is an incredibly cruel form of torture to force them to stay together. That would be a kind of hell, would it not? You and your ex forced to live together for the rest of your lives. Any attempt to eliminate the escape hatch is just a setup for misery. People should stay together because they want to, not because they have to. We have cultural baggage around marriage, and it is not serving us well. Girls are taught from a young age that their happiest day will be their wedding day. But then, what about all the days of marriage after that? They are taught that their parents will be proud of them and finally think they have succeeded once they get married, that society will find them more legitimate, and that they will have a title and a new name to prove their worth. None of these things are true, but when you teach a girl from age 4, she internalizes it. Story 13. We have been together for 20 years. We have no children. We do not see a need for marriage because we have very comfortable lives and both own a house and land together. How will some boring ceremony change what we have already built? I would rather spend the money on more traveling. Story 14. I had been in a few stable long-term relationships with different women before I got married. A stable long-term relationship means that you like each other, you do not fight, the sex is good, and you do not want to break up. That is very different from someone you marry. I married my actual soulmate, a woman I cannot imagine myself without. Story 15. To be honest, I really don't see the point other than maybe health insurance benefits. I know way too many people going through ugly divorces than I know people who are in truly happy marriages. That being said, I have a child on the way and most likely will marry her at some point because she is the mother of my future child and I want to make her happy if it is what she wants. I would really like to sign a prenuptial agreement though. She makes slightly more money than me, so it is not about that. I think I have seen enough ugly splits to realize it would simplify a split. God forbid. Story 16. It adds nothing to the relationship. Marriage has nothing to do with love. It is just a bad contract with no upsides. So why would we, maybe slightly lower taxes? The one flawed statistic that says married men are happier? Every other statistic is negative for the man or in favor of the woman. Story 17. I was married for 20 years and will not do it again. I ended up with nothing, and the courts are biased towards women, especially when children are involved. Story 18. A better question is why get married? I do not want to merge finances with another woman. I do not want to have children. I am not sure I even want to live with a woman full-time again. So I do not have much motivation to marry. Story 19. I am not interested in marriage. Aside from it being a tradition and perhaps some tax benefits, what is the point? Story 20. I have not heard a compelling reason to do so outside of hospital visitations, and I am not at the age where those are likely to happen. Story 21. Easy to buy property. I helped her buy a house that we both live in. I gave her the down payment, but it is solely in her name. That allows me to buy another property without her mortgage obligation affecting me. According to lenders, I am not responsible for paying a mortgage, rent, or any living expenses related to her property. This makes my debt-to-income ratio very appealing, and I get approved more easily. Once I buy the property, I rent it out and start saving for another. Before I get criticized for being a landlord, I buy very distressed homes that need significant rehabilitation. I charge below market rate, and my tenants tend to be young adults who are still deciding where to live permanently or newly retired people who want to avoid the stress of home upkeep. It has been beneficial for both parties, and most of my tenants have stayed for many years. Story 22. I have been in a committed, monogamous relationship with a woman for nearly 10 years. I am 45, and she is 37. Neither of us has or wants children. We are both strongly child-free. We live in a state that does not recognize common law marriage. There is no advantage for me to get legally married. I make far more than she does, but she earns enough that there would be no tax benefit for us. She has a more stable career, whereas I have to change employers from time to time. Every time the health insurance issue comes up, it has always been cheaper to separate the insurance. We run our finances completely separately. I already owned my house when we met, and by the time she moved in, I had such considerable equity in it that it was not feasible for her to become a partner in it. More or less, she pays me rent monthly, utilities included, and gets a great deal. We would eventually like to upgrade to something nicer, bigger, and newer, but I have explained that we can only be equal owners if she provides half the down payment and makes half the mortgage payment each month, as well as pays half of any upkeep and upgrades. I would love for that to work out, but knowing her spending habits, it is highly unlikely. We live together and do most things together. She is my emergency contact, my sole beneficiary, and my medical proxy. Sooner or later, I will establish an ironclad trust with her as the sole trustee upon my death. Should we die together or she dies first, my estate will be liquidated and then donated to charity. If she does not receive it, no one does. So if we got married, what would change? Aside from savings depleted by an extravagant affair, what would improve? Would we fight less? We hardly fight now. Better sex? We already have amazing, passionate sex. Protection if something happens to me? Already covered. In fact, I only stand to lose if I am legally married. The majority of my net worth, which is decent for a blue-collar worker, was built by my hard work and occasional luck, either before I met her or during our relationship. She has had virtually no influence on it financially or decision-wise. If we got married and then divorced for any reason, she would be in a position to clean me out. No thanks. Story 23. Marriage would make things more complicated. For now, it seems like an unnecessary step. I am happy with what we have as it is. It is sustainable and stable because we both have strong extended families in the background. I imagine people who really want marriage are looking to tie someone down whom they are not confident will stay otherwise. Story 24. Because the impact of it going wrong for me is not worth it. The only benefit, at least in my part of the world, of marriage is a small tax break. Working and volunteering closely in men's groups within my area, I see the endless impact of emotional and financial ruin. When 42% of marriages end in divorce, which is considered good for a Western country, why take the risk? Two of the highest reported triggers for male suicide and suicide attempts are parental alienation and reduced quality of life, often following divorces. Generally speaking, men are better off financially more stable, often reporting better quality of life and higher happiness when they are not married. It is easy math to me. Story 25. It hurts less if the girlfriend cheats on you. You can just move on to the next without having to give up half of your belongings. Story 26. Because I have already been married and divorced, I learned that marriage is nothing more than a contract with pros and cons for both parties. Prenuptial agreements that modify the contract can be overturned by the discretion of a judge, even if all procedures are followed correctly, so they are not guaranteed. Considering the pros and cons, unless you are younger or planning to have children together, signing that contract is almost never worth it from my perspective, especially if both partners are older and already have children. You can have a commitment to each other without a government contract. Story 27. I am 60 years old, divorced for 15 years, and currently in a long-term relationship. The person I am dating and I get along great. However, I do not see the point in getting married. I am financially secure and she is not. Considering our financial situation, marriage would be more of an economic contract that would only benefit her. If we were married and things went sour, she would have no choice but to take as much as she could, which would reduce my daughter's inheritance. On the other hand, if we are not married and things did not work out, I would help her start a new life unless the issue was infidelity. She is also part of the trust that provides her with quarterly payments for the rest of her life if anything happens to me while we are still together. My perspective comes from being a stepchild. Both step-parents wrongfully deprived my brother and me of our inheritance. My opinion about second marriages is that your children always come first. In the event of my death, my daughter will always be taken care of and be the priority, not someone who arrived later in life. Story 28. Marriage often reduces the motivation to nurture the relationship. Instead, many married couples stay in watching the same poor quality shows on streaming services and resenting each other, each thinking the other is lazy. This is often because they have a legal commitment that makes separation more difficult. Story 29. Marriage laws are definitively biased against men, giving women motivation to weaponize the legal system against them. Yes, he might care for a girl, but do the math. Not every woman does, but every woman can. Story 30. I hope not, but if the relationship ends, the rules in my area are more to my advantage if I do not get married. Story 31. It is not that I do not want to get married. It is more that it is expensive, and life has been relatively unstable for a while. But mainly the money. Plus, I am not a big fan of being center of attention. Getting married is incredibly expensive, though. Story 32. I've been married once, and I love being married to that person. I believe in being married only once in your life, and if it doesn't work out, then it wasn't meant to be, at least for me. Marriage is something unique, deep, and very spiritual between two people. That said, I respect anyone else whether they have married 2 or 5 times. I don't care. Personally, I love my girlfriend of 5 years. She's amazing in every way possible. However, the reason I am hesitant is because, as much as I love her, she is too clingy with her family. Story 33. Female perspective here. My best friend's partner explained it perfectly. He said I show up every day because I want to, not because a legal document says I have to. Story 34. I am in neither, so I understand that my opinion is not that relevant. However, if you are in a long-term stable relationship, why would you want to change it and risk destabilizing it? Story 35. I was already married once and it did not work out. My girlfriend of 4 years was as well. We are in our 40s and agree that there is no point in getting married. It is not permanent, as we have both discovered. We love each other and fully agree on this. That said, if it was important to her, I would get married. Story 36. We were together 10 years before getting married. We got engaged after 2.5 years, moved in together, and then kids and houses came along. Priorities meant that we did not tie the knot sooner. I did worry prior to getting married that it would add additional pressure, and as nothing was broken, there was no need to fix it. But it was a great decision. I would not change it for the world. Story 37. I know more divorced and multiple divorced men than married men. In most cases, they were loving, loyal, and good providers. Divorce deeply damaged their reputation due to lies in court, the limited time they get with their children, their finances, and for those divorced multiple times, their retirement savings are significantly reduced after being divided twice. Furthermore, they inherited some of their ex-spouse's debt. If people did not change so much after marriage and did not give up so easily when issues arise, marriage might still be worth it. Story 38. Marriage is no longer a benefit. Once upon a time, it was used to create wealth and unite two families together through resources and connections. Now, why would I get married when I can just swipe on an app and get laid the same weekend? Girls are giving it up to anyone for free. It is only going to get worse as inflation and debt continue to grow. More and more women will hook up and date the same men. Just focus on getting money, staying healthy, and succeeding. The future will consist of a small group of men getting all the women while everyone else is watching pornography and virtual reality robot love. Story 39. Because financially, I have everything to lose and nothing to gain in something that is supposed to be a partnership. Story 40. Female perspective here. My partner and I discussed this recently. He mentioned how his grandparents never married but stayed together for 50 years. Sometimes the pressure to get married comes from society, not the heart. Story 41. In my honest opinion, women often stop putting in effort when they get married. They let themselves go, gain weight, stop providing oral intimacy, and stop initiating physical intimacy. I have 2 data points from my 2 marriages, so take it for what it is worth. Story 42. I do not see a point at all. I do not want to get married ever, and I never want to have children either. We have been together for over 5 years and have never had any issues. We are happy with the way we are. Story 43. I'm not religious and I don't like the government because I feel like they overreach and mess up everything they touch. Why would I introduce both of those institutions into my relationship? We get the same tax benefits by being common law and didn't need to spend thousands we don't have on a big party. Story 44. Life is easier without being married. Everything I have worked for cannot be taken away from me because I am just in a relationship. When one side contributes almost everything financially, I am not willing to lose things due to the benefits of divorce and asset division. Story 45. There are other things we are prioritizing, such as school, moving in together, and becoming more financially stable. It is not that I am against it, but it is lower on our list of goals. Story 46. Why? Because marriage laws have become one-sided and unfair to men, offering no advantage to marriage for a man anymore. Signing that contract involves only costs and risks for men. There is no reason to do it and many good reasons not to. Do you want men to get married? Give them a reason to. Reduce the costs and risks and provide some kind of benefit for men. Story 47. I would rather her have the freedom to leave the relationship with as few complications as possible. I would rather us have a good time and separate if it comes to that. I am going to put in effort when times are hard, but not risk my money and health fighting for someone who does not want me. I do not want anyone to feel trapped in a relationship they are not happy in. I do not view love as a finite resource only for one person, even if that is how I typically practice it. Love is about the commitment that we make every day, not just one day. A piece of paper should not define my relationship. Story 48. What difference does a piece of paper that we both signed, after spending multiple thousands in dealing with family I do not want to talk to, make to my day-to-day life? I have been with my partner for 21 years. We both do not want children and do not want to get married. We are happy and enjoying our lives with our dog and cat, going on trips whenever and wherever we want. Getting married does not make it any better, just worse. Story 49. I am married and get asked this by my single friends. The advantages of marriage are if you are religious, want to have children, want to buy property, or want benefits like health insurance that can be shared. If those things are not part of the relationship, there is no incentive for a man to get married. Story 50. Because most men have seen significant instability in how their partner is, they are still in love with them. Story 51. When it comes to the details, de facto partners do not have as much legal authority as a wife or husband in death or serious medical situations. Marriage essentially makes you legally related. Story 52. It is the most legally significant thing you can do besides die, and people know little to nothing about it until they are trying to get out. Story 53. I do not want to, and I do not care for it. I rarely see a marriage work out nowadays either. Most people I know who have gotten married are either divorced or deeply unhappy. I love my lady. She is my literal everything, so why change anything? Story 54. I am married and have children. Do not get me wrong, I love my wife. We get along well. However, if I knew then what I know now and had the choice to redo my life, I would choose to be single. Marriage consumes everything a man has: time, energy, and peace. Most of the time, it feels unappreciated. Expressing this view often attracts a lot of negativity. I have 2 sons and 2 daughters. I have already spoken with my sons and advised them to consider marriage very carefully. If in doubt, opt out. My daughters will get what they want with the right man. My sons likely will not. Story 55. I am personally scared of marrying. My parents' marriage was difficult, and most of my friends and colleagues who are married dislike it. Story 56. I'm not religious and I don't see any relevant benefits coming from it. A relationship, in my opinion, is something that happens between 2 people. I neither need a government-approved contract nor some spiritual figure to approve, confirm, or regulate that relationship. People have long sought to increase their individual freedom, and I don't see why restricting yourself in one of the most intimate parts of life makes any sense. If she has trust issues and fears I would spontaneously leave because there is no contract binding me or punishing me for leaving, that is a trust issue between us. Signing some paper will not fix this. A priest hearing a vow does not make a breakup any less likely, nor does signing a contract. Trust is between the two of us, and neither the state, church, nor family can force us to be better partners than we want to be. Story 57. Marriage is a Christian construct and does not serve me or my partners. Commingling of finances is very bad. Personally, I do not live with partners. The relationship lasts much longer when you are not together all the time. People may start with the best intentions, but that does not mean it will always be that way. This is just my experience, and yours may be very different. Story 58. I'm way past my child-creating days. There is nothing in this for me. No reason to get married. I have companionship with someone who is great. Putting a legal agreement on top of that is just a recipe to get lazy and stop trying. Story 59. Because marriage is like holding a gun to our head and giving the person holding it every incentive in the world to pull the trigger. Marriage often leads to divorce, which is a life-destroying event. Why would any man want to destroy his commitment with a woman by getting married? Marriage is designed to disadvantage men in every possible way. It has also become a test for men to see how genuine a woman's love is. If a woman cannot distinguish between marriage and real love, then men will know she is only interested in him as a means to an end, not for who he is. Women who want marriage reveal that they are only interested in what a man provides and intend to keep extracting his resources through the legal system, even after they choose to end the relationship through legal measures like divorce. It is telling and disturbing how women sometimes pretend not to understand why men are unwilling to participate in being exploited by people who feign love. Yes, I am in a committed, stable, and long-term relationship, and no, I am never going to get married. I have spoken to my girlfriend about this, and she knows that the moment marriage is on the table, it may as well be a pistol because both are a threat and signal the end of the relationship. Story 60. The woman has already allowed them to receive husband benefits without providing her wife benefits. They have no incentives to change that. Story 61. I have been with my girlfriend for nearly 14 years now, and we are not married. There is no point for either of us. We could incur a lot of debt buying rings and having a wedding, or we could do what we did and put our savings towards buying a house together and getting a dog. Being married would not change anything about our relationship. Story 62. The potential tax deductions and insurance benefits do not offset the drastic difference in how the legal system treats men and women differently when the law is involved, specifically in divorce settlements, alimony, and child custody disputes. Courts are still biased in favor of women in these matters, even though women have just as much employment autonomy as men today. Abortion laws have changed recently, although I do not express a personal opinion on that. Previously, a woman could become pregnant and it was entirely her choice whether to keep the baby and potentially receive financial support from the father for 18 years, even if she did not want the child. In some states, she could relinquish the baby anonymously at designated locations if she did not want it. While some might consider these situations rare or exaggerated, this context is important. In short, the legal system favors women in almost any situation involving the law. Therefore, if you are a man, it may not be wise to involve the legal system unless absolutely necessary. Beyond this, marriage followed by divorce often results in significant disappointment and major life changes. Story 63. I would like to get married, but I am secretly afraid of it. There is too much that can go wrong these days, and women are often manipulated into resenting their partners too easily. Perhaps if divorces did not result in losing everything, it would not be such a big deal. Story 64. I do not need a man with a funny hat or a middle-aged bureaucrat to tell me that my relationship is good. Story 65. I just do not see the point, to be honest. It is not going to add anything to my relationship. It is not going to give any more rights that cannot be done another way for far less money. It just feels outdated to me. Story 66. Too much risk. Modern women spend their whole time learning how to mitigate risk in a relationship and not be vulnerable. Why would I make myself vulnerable to someone who will not make themselves vulnerable to me? The attitude of women in this day and age has put me off being a romantic about marriage. Story 67. It is just a paperwork exercise these days. Getting a mortgage and a dog with someone means more than marriage. Story 68. Marriage brings a significant amount of responsibility for others. We do not have the innate drive to have children. In fact, we rarely consider it until close to marriage. Story 69. My dad used to say, "Gift is something you take not to become married." It is a play on words that does not translate well. The words for poison and married are the same in Danish. So the sentence would be, poison is something you take not to become married. It is supposed to be a joke, but apart from the play on words, I do not get it. It is definitely not words to live by. Story 70. All people who have divorced were married. No unmarried person has ever divorced. Conclusion. Do not marry. It may lead to divorce. Story 71. I have a very big family, as does my partner, and not all of those family members see eye to eye. Some, particularly those close to the inner circle, I would say dislike each other. So if there was a wedding and they were in the same space, it would be quite tense. I am also the only openly gay member of my immediate family, as is my partner in his family. I feel like the fact that it would be the first same-sex wedding the majority of our families would attend puts a bit of pressure on us. We are not religious. I have considered just registering the marriage at the town hall and having a series of celebrations instead. However, it feels like it has to be all or nothing, so I am leaning towards nothing. We have been in a relationship for 13 years, so I don't think a wedding would change anything other than the state of our bank accounts. Story 72. I do not need a piece of paper from the government to prove I love my fiancée. However, it matters to her and her culture, so I have no issue doing it. She was with me when I had nothing, so I am not worried about her going after my money. That said, I completely understand why many men choose not to marry. Story 73. I still believe strongly that no straight man wants to get married. They want their girlfriend to be happy, and their girlfriend wants to get married. Whenever I ask women what men get in marriage that they cannot get in a loving relationship, the only answer is tax benefits. That being said, I think women are also pretty blind to what marriage means. Whenever I show them any problematic situations they can face with the entire marriage legal agreement, they become less interested. So, I would say the question should be, women, why do you want to get married so much? Since, in my experience, most of them have not thought about what it legally means for them or their potential husband. Story 74. My wife and I were together for 12 years before we got married. That was 15 years ago. Being married will make things easier for her if I die before she does. I cannot think of anything a man gets out of being married other than making his significant other happy and a piece of paper to put in a drawer. Story 75. The other half says, because the glitzy wedding aspect is boring to him and it is all about the woman anyway. The man's job is to stand at the altar, that is it. He would rather spend money on a house that can make a profit in the future. Story 76. I am sterile, reasonably well-to-do, and my girlfriend does not have citizenship in any country different from mine. I do not want or need to make it more difficult for her to leave me. If there are reasons I am missing, as I am in the United States, I am keen to hear them. However, I do not need to protect custody rights. The wage premium does not seem worth it. Story 77. Over 11 years now. Let me counter with a question. Why would I? I never got a satisfying answer. That is it. Story 78. Plenty of threesomes before marriage. I got accustomed to waking up with 2 girls in my bed. 0 threesomes since. Story 79. We do not have children and never will. I dislike weddings. Almost everyone I have attended has involved some kind of drama or conflict. I have vowed never to attend another wedding again. Nearly all of our relatives have had at least 2 weddings. We would rather spend the money on something else. Story 80. I did want to get married a while ago, but I don't have children. I bought my house with my own savings, did a lot of the work myself, and paid for specialists completely. I am not losing this place. I have designated this place as a non-marital home in the mortgage. There is a risk that a partner might end the relationship on a whim. During menopause, there is a possibility that a female partner could become repulsed by me. Marriage costs money. If you choose to marry at a registry office, your family might question why you did not have a big ceremony. While I am not sure my family would do that, it is a common reaction among others, even in diverse groups. Even civil partnerships are not worth it because they are not recognized by all countries. You could spend 20 years together only for your partner to cheat on you, and you might lose your assets if you leave them or vice versa. I am no longer a fan of traditional values. I was when I was younger and had not experienced alternatives. When enough people aged 40 to 60 advise against marriage, you tend to see it as a negative experience. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.